Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Welcome to the Fly With Us podcast. This podcast is bringing the art of conversation, self-love, self-care, mental health care and protection, life lessons, love lessons, and everything in between. Today, we're going to talk about the Civil Rights Act and Byron Allen and Tyler Perry's Power Moves. This will be part one of a two-part episode. I'm Lady Bounce.
I'm Kryptonite, making you weak now.
Making you weak. All right, so give us some education, some background on our Civil Rights Act that is trying to be overturned, which a lot of people don't know. If you don't watch the news and you don't follow the news, that's what we're here for.
Well, this ain't even about the news because this is not what's in the news. Because positive things about us don't make it to the news. Let's just be clear on that.
You don't say.
Let's be clear on that.
No.
So what we're going to talk about right now, to be specific, is the Civil Rights Act of 1866. And it is the very first Civil Rights Act that was put on the books in our favor. Now, you probably haven't heard of this act because I hadn't either. Until I watched The Breakfast Club, which if you guys don't watch The Breakfast Club, every once in a while, there are some jewels on there that you should just grab up whenever you get the opportunity. It's a very good show. Even if you don't like some of the people that's on there, watch it anyway, because you just might find out something that you didn't know.
Yeah. And they're on all social media platforms, of course, and on your radio, your local radio dial.
Okay, so here we go.
All right.
The Civil Rights Act of 1866 became law on April 9th. 1866 by a 2/3 majority overriding President Andrew Johnson's veto. The first aim of the act was to provide federal protection to emancipated African Americans, giving practical effect to the 13th Amendment. It was the first in a series of Reconstruction era civil rights acts. Okay, I'm trying to
paraphrase because
it's long. You guys need to look it up. Okay, if you want to look it up, just go into Google and just write out Civil Rights Act of 1866, and you'll get all the information you need on it. So, but I'm going to do a little bit of paraphrasing here. Okay. An immediate concern of the 39th Congress was to invalidate the black codes emerging from Southern legislatures after the Civil War. Promulgated first in 1865, and basically that just means that it was put into law.
Okay.
These laws limited the civil rights of freed men to own real and personal property, to freely seek employment or redress in the courts on terms equal to rights, and established harsher criminal penalties for blacks than for whites, among other depredations. Okay, so we're going to scoot on down here. And basically there's two codes to this. Okay, the first code, let me see. There's two sections. Section 1 and Section 2 proved to be most important in the history of the civil rights. Section 1 declared all persons born in the United States, excepting Indians not taxed, as citizens of the United States, contrary to the decision of Dred Scott versus Sanford. Basically, that means Indians don't pay taxes, but the rest of us do. If I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong. So if you're a lawyer out there and you listening to this and I'm wrong, please feel free to correct me and let everybody know what the HAPC is, because I'm not necessarily educated on this subject. I'm just informed. So I'm reading it and hearing it first too. Okay. It granted all citizens the right to make and enforce contracts, to sue, be parties, and give evidence to inherit, purchase, lease, sell, hold, and convey real and personal property, and to full and equal benefit of all laws and proceedings for the security of person and property, as is enjoyed by white citizens. So basically what they saying is you should not be exempt from having a long, happy, healthy life filled with materialistic items just like white folks.
I like it.
Okay. Section 2 provides a criminal penalty for persons who, under color of state law, deprived any citizen of rights granted on account of race. This was a significant expansion of basic rights and liberties to former slaves. All right. Now, you know, of course, white folks came in and dissected that.
Right.
And they put little stuff in there, little loopholes and little but fors and all that type stuff up in there. So that was the issue. Okay. Now, getting down here to the end, I'm just going to scoot down here to the end, the last two paragraphs. All right. Majority interpretation was extended to section 42 USC. In 1981, in Runyon versus McCrae, which held that the Civil Rights Act of 1866 was codified, the United States Code prohibits racial discrimination generally in the making and enforcement of private contracts. Regardless of the merits of dissenting opinions, the principle that the 1866 Civil Rights Act prohibits private racial discrimination was expressly reaffirmed in Patterson versus McLean Credit Union after the court invited arguments to reconsider the issue and has not since been in jeopardy of reversal. Until now. Which brings us to Byron Allen.
All right.
Let's talk about it.
So, if you don't know, now you know. A coalition of civil rights organizations this week accused Comcast of undermining Reconstruction area protections against racial discrimination, weighing in on a lawsuit against the company that is now before the U.S. Supreme Court. Comedian and media mogul Byron Allen is suing the cable television provider for $20 billion under an 1866 law, which we just learned about, that said newly freed African Americans have the same right to enter into contracts as any white citizen. The case is scheduled to be heard late November. Allen, who is black, alleges that Comcast discriminated against him in its refusal to carry cable channels by his company, Entertainment Studios Networks. Comcast said it made a business decision to reject his general interest channels based on what they thought viewers wanted. So the question before the court is whether Comcast says that Allen must show that race was the sole motivating reason for their decision to reject his channels. A victory for Comcast could make it harder for victims of discrimination to sue employers, landlords, and other businesses under the measure, who says, as said by a national civil rights attorney, I won't say her name. It could force victims to prove that racial discrimination was the only factor in any disputed contracting decision. So there's a whole lot at stake in this case. It's much bigger than Comcast and Byron Allen. This is about real victims of discrimination who should not face additional hurdles and getting the opportunity to be heard in court. The implication for African Americans and other marginalized communities of colors are grave.
Now, in saying that, how that article put that the part about the purpose of the lawsuit, there is another part to that.
Okay.
And the other part to that, which I can understand why they won't mention it, but I think it's kind of neglectful as well, is that is not necessarily the standards in which you must prove discrimination. You don't have to prove that 100% you were discriminated against because of the color of your skin. You only have to prove that it was part of the reason why you were discriminated against.
Right.
So if there's any reason at all that they are not considering his platform or his company or considering doing business with him because of the color of his skin, then his case has merit. And he has already won twice in Ninth Circuit Court.
Yes.
The decision was made that he was in the right and that Charter was in the wrong. Mm-hmm. And that they did discriminate against him. So he was in two separate cases, one with Comcast and one with Charter. Right. The Comcast case, he lost. The Charter case, he won. Mm-hmm. He won both. There was two cases with Charter. Right. He won both twice. They appealed the case that he won the first time, and then they went back and he won the case again. Right. So Charter said, well, we don't agree, so we're going to appeal this, and we're going to appeal it in Supreme Court. So Byron Allen is like, well, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. Now that I know that I have that avenue, I'm going to take Comcast to task, and I'm going to take them to Supreme Court, because now they're going to have to prove as well for the same reasons that I wasn't discriminated against. Right. You know what I mean? So if you get a chance, please go watch the Breakfast Club segment with Byron Allen so you can be fully informed and so you can really know what's going on and have a real idea of what this really means for us as Black people in total. You know,
I think what I'll do is when this episode airs, I'll post a link.
Yeah, that's
so.
Cool.
So when you watch this episode, you can go right into the comment section and watch the Byron Allen interview where he clearly explains what's at stake, how it got started, where he is now, and the fact that not only did he win his 2 cases, but he's fighting this on his own with his own money.
Right. His own money. Right. That's and
even though there's all of these heavy hitting, powerful Black people in entertainment, I wonder, because they're going to benefit from it too, why aren't they rallying behind him with the support financially
what's more
and
important,
physically?
I'm going to tell you what's more important than that. And what's more important than that, where did I write this at? I wrote it down someplace.
Your handwriting's so pretty.
Why, thank you. Thank you very much. We have 55 Black caucus members.
Yes.
Out of the 55 Black caucus members, only 8 of them signed a amicus brief.
Yes, that was brought forth by Kamala Harris.
And it was signed off on by Cory Booker. Now, if you're wondering what an amicus brief is, basically it's a letter that is written in your favor and submitted to the Supreme Court by a friend of the court. Now, why is this an issue? I'll tell you.
Okay.
Because Charter has gone to the Department of Justice, the head of the Department of Justice under President Donald Trump.
Your homeboy.
Yeah. Yeah. So the Department of Justice for President Donald Trump has written an amicus brief in favor of Comcast.
Yes.
And basically they are fighting to repeal this Civil Rights Act that has been on the books for 150 years.
Wow.
So what they're doing is they're like, they have 30 minutes to argue their case in front of the Supreme Court.
Yes.
10 of those minutes they are going to give to the Department of Justice, Donald Trump's Department of Justice, to argue their case for them.
Wow.
Yeah, with the amicus brief and whatnot.
Which actually... he touches on it in the interview, but the interview is just a clip. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna have to go and find the whole thing. But he touches on it. That is actually sort of illegal because the Department of Justice is supposed to be the Department of Justice for everybody.
And it's supposed to be biased.
Yes, they're not supposed to pick a side.
No.
So by them having 10 minutes to argue on behalf of Comcast
on a discrimination issue looks really, really bad.
It does indeed.
It does. It looks really,
because
really
if you're the Department of Justice,
my only concern is the platform in which they are standing in front of are also people that were picked by Donald Trump. So the issue that I have is not that it's not a good case to bring to the Supreme Court or even a great one for that matter.
Right.
My issue is that the people that are going to be deciding on it are still handpicked by a racist jerk.
Right.
And therefore, you know what I'm saying? Like most of the people he picked are like-minded.
Right.
So if you're dealing with people that are like-minded, then what are the chances that the other side is going to prevail with justice?
Right.
So that's my only concern about it, and I guess that's kind of why, because in the interview, Charlemagne kept going back to that same question like 2 or 3 times, like, well, what's going to be the outcome? Like, why is this so important for us? Like, why should we care? We should care because this means that if they win this, if Comcast wins this means that we can be discriminated against for more than just trying to purchase cable companies or cable time. We can be discriminated against for housing, for jobs, where we live.
We're already discriminated against in the criminal justice system.
You know what I'm saying? So and then there's also underhanded ways that they discriminate against us. But now they can't blatantly flat out just be like, well, nope, you're black. Don't want you. You know what I'm saying? Basically, they can say that and not have to suffer any type of legal repercussions for it.
Right, because the law says
you won't be able to sue for discrimination because then the law has obliterated this Civil Rights Act, saying that it's unconstitutional and it just doesn't matter, so we're just going to repeal it and it has no merit. When we all know in this country this law has merit.
It absolutely has merit. If you think about the acts that came after that that gave us more rights and gave us more freedoms.
Think about all of the things that affected us you know what I'm saying? At like the whole housing discrimination situation.
Yeah.
How we couldn't buy houses in certain areas because of the color of our skin. You know what I'm saying? Or how they grouped us up in certain areas because of the color of our skin.
Hashtag the projects.
Yeah, you know.
And that's why they were called the projects, because it was a project. It was a social experiment project.
From my understanding of the way that all went down is it didn't become a project until after the war. Till after men start coming home. When white women had to go to work because all the men were fighting in World War II. When white women had to go to work, that's where they put them, was in their projects to make housing more affordable for them. They didn't really care where we lived. They didn't care. You know what I'm saying? But after those men came home, and they started going out actually buying houses. Right. You know what I'm saying? Then they kind of needed to fill them spots up. So that's when they start coming up with all these. That's how they start getting us in there and corralling us into those places. Right. Now, I might be a little rusty on that because that's something I saw on a documentary. But I'm pretty positive that's the gist of it. And that's how it became. That's how the projects became what they are, because white people started moving out after the men came home. The men started needing jobs and they started going to work. So white women didn't have to work like that. Then the men was making good money. They got them out of the cities, out of the projects, and they went out to the suburbs and bought houses. Well, now what are we going to do with these big buildings with all of these little apartments? Hey, let's get the black folks in there. Right. Because you know what I'm saying? We know that when the black men came home from war, there was no ticker tape parade. There was no, hey, here's a job in this great company. Not World War II. Am I thinking? I'm thinking the wrong war. The wrong war. When was the Great Depression? That was in like 1922 or something. Was that the First World War? I think so. I don't know. But I mean, either way, when they came home, it was the same. That was the issue, right? That was the issue. But then, like when like the Vietnam War came, and they sent all those black men over there, and then they came back. Well, see, by then we was already in projects, right? Yeah, because it was easier, it was cheaper. You sent my man away. I already didn't have a job. I was, doing domestic work, which didn't pay nothing anyway. Then you took my man away, who did have a decent job, and you sent him off to war. Then you sent him back to me, broken, mentally unstable, and drug addicted, so that he could no longer provide value for me and my children. So now we are stuck here, unlike our counterparts who were given options to not be stuck here. There's so many different opinions about the projects and how they came about and the conditions and the situations and all of that stuff. We could be on that for forever. Oh my God, could we ever? Then we still see, like, even in all of that, we still see the negative aspects of it all. Even with the Civil Rights Act that we got that gave us these freedoms or gave us these allowances, we still are bearing the brunt of the years before that. Oh, of course, yeah. And so even now, we still brunt the scars of slavery. Period. Right. Like, period. Just being slaves. No, you people have been free for a while. You should just get over it. You're gonna leave me alone. Is what you're gonna do. You should just get over it. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, let's talk about Byron Allen for you. All right. So Byron Allen, if you don't know, I always thought he was very corny as a comedian. Always. I always thought he was like a B-rated D-list type actor. However, I never seen him acting. Did he act? Yeah, he was in a couple of like straight to DVD movies, which nowadays would be straight to Netflix movies. Well, I know it didn't take him long to get to be on That's Incredible. Right. You remember that show. And then to hear his story, the story that he told about how he came up, it was very inspiring. It was very cool. The way that he got into he worked his way up, like truly worked his way up. Well, not just that, he was exposed to a lot of it through his mother, because his mother asked for simple things. Like, she asked for an internship and they gave it to her. They didn't want to pay her. Right. But they so enough took that free service she was providing. What you mean, sir? But that's okay, because in the end, she in the end did become successful in her own right, but it opened the door and paved the way for him to see a brighter future and to make moves that maybe he wouldn't necessarily made any other way or in any other type of environment. I know I'm always I'm shocked when I see certain things
And not necessarily shocked.
Hey, y'all, we cold down here.
It is a little chilly in the studio today.
Look, I know they bundled up in that joint. But okay.
So, but like when I see certain shows or like movies and it says produced by Byron Allen, because he has fallen off publicly.
He's not falling off.
No, not falling off, but he's not out there in your face.
He's behind the scenes. He make quiet moves.
Right, making major moves.
Making major quiet moves. That man owns the Weather Channel. There's a black man that owns, there's 4 major news outlets, and the Weather Channel is one of them.
Right. And he owns one of them.
And he owns the Weather Channel.
He owns his own entertainment company. He produces as they call the illuminating television that comes on Saturday morning. And
the griot. What is the griot?
It's
isn't that a news
and entertainment website and channel? It's a channel also.
I meant to look that up because he owns that too, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he owns the griot.
And the griot is a major news outlet, a little classier than TMZ as far as the celebrity news that they report. It's not always salacious. Mm-hmm. It is the more positive side of things going on. With a touch of the salacious stuff too, but for the most part, it's actually like real legit news. It's considered a trusted source.
And I do know that because I've heard of the griot, and I think at one point I even read a few things on the griot. I just didn't realize that he owned it.
He owns it. The like I said, the illuminating television that comes on Saturday morning for kids, the smart programs. Yeah, he produces those.
Does he?
Yes, and then
now see, why would you as a cable company not want to put something like that on your network? Like what? How do you feel that no parent wants their child to be educated through, say, cartoons? Right. You know what I'm saying? Something they would be interested in.
He even has a show called Teen Scene, where it's these teenagers that go out and they interview
Don't they do news reports?
Reports and actors.
I've seen that.
About the movie industry, and they go behind the scenes and they show you these other jobs besides being
I've seen that.
on the screen or being a director to make a movie. Like they talk about what a best boy is and what a grip boy is. He's always
been a positive guy, and I did know that he had his hand in a lot of productions.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? I just didn't realize how big he was until I heard he owned the Weather Channel. I'm like, oh,
wait a minute,
he been making moves for real. I mean, and then that on top of the Tyler Perry move, but we're gonna talk about that later because that was a chess move too. But hey, what they say, gangsters move in silence.
Always.
Hey, these is financial gangsters.
Yeah, because if it had not been for him taking up this fight against the two of the major cable companies, I wouldn't know about them trying to repeal the Civil Rights Act of 1866.
Idea. Had I not watched had an avenue such as the Breakfast Club not been available, because I like to think of myself. I mean, I'm older or whatever, but I grew up in the hip hop era. You know what I'm saying? That's still very much a part of my life. So when you have avenues such as the Breakfast Club that can give you information that you can use, but you still dealing with the hip hop culture. You still dealing with the hip hop era and things that matter to black people culturally, musically, all of that. So it was a wonderful platform for him to be on, to just basically give some information to those of us that don't necessarily keep up with things. Like you hear, I'm the type of person, I go to work.
Right.
So when I hear about stuff, I do hear about it on a humble. Like I don't watch the news. The news is depressing to me. All I hear about, you know what I'm saying, it's always something bad for us in the media. Something's always negative. And for real, quite honestly, whether it's dealing with us or not, the news just freaking brings me down.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying? Like who the heck? I just don't want to. It's right. I have enough depressing stuff going on.
In my real life,
the depressing stuff. Right. Well, not just that. I'm not even gonna say in my real life. Spiritually, I feel like this world is jacked. Honest to goodness. I just watched on TV today where there was a flood, I believe it was in Paris, that took out buildings that were centuries old. It was like 12 inches of rain that fell in 3 hours. Right. And stuff just started, RVs was floating away.
Wow.
People were stuck on bridges and the water was just like, it was just right there, just pretty much at their feet. And these people, they carrying their dogs as big as them. You know what I'm saying? So and then the wildfires that's happening, you know what I'm saying? Where people's houses, and there's land that's being burnt up. I mean, I don't think people truly realize the impact that these things have on the world, on our environment. Right. Trees are the lungs of the earth. If you burn down the trees, our oxygen is screwed. We live off oxygen. We'll have smut in our lungs. We won't be able to breathe. If you tear down all of these trees and you get rid of all of this wildlife and you get rid of all of these preservations, and it's just it's irritating and mind-boggling, and then you can't believe the fact that people just don't give climate control any type of merit. Right. It's nuts to me. Right. And I choose not to listen to the news because I already know of these things that's going on. So every little thing that I hear about this wildfire here or flooding there, or so, it just adds to that. Right. You know what I'm saying? It just adds to and I just have other things I need. I just prefer to live within that moment doing my thing, because I know with the type of work that I do, the thing that I'm doing in that moment is spiritually rewarding to me. And I would prefer to feel that. Right. I would prefer that. But, okay.
All right. So before we get out of here, hit us with some mindfulness.
We about to go.
Yeah.
Okay. Regular people who run the world.
Who run the world?
The knowledge which stops at what it does not know is the greatest. We should never look down on the regular people in society or idealize the rich and famous. The celebrities and politicians, the financial speculators, the military generals, none of them actually make the world work, although they might think they do. The most important people in any given organization do not have a big, long title or work in the corner office. They do not get paid a lot of money. We should be more mindful of these everyday people who labor mostly in anonymity, who keep our societies running. We should collectively learn how to better appreciate those who just do an honest day's work. This evening, mentally give thanks for the people in your life who make things work. It could be the mechanic who works on your car, and administrative assistants, the truck drivers who bring products to the store, the farmers who grow food. Think of how lost you would be without them. Let your heart be filled with gratitude, and make sure it shows the next time you encounter a regular person just doing his or her job. The reason I chose this is because we all help one another in one way or another. Black, white, whatever. It doesn't matter. From the person that you give your money to as a cashier to the person that's making your laws. I mean, you know what I mean? Like to black people produce a lot of revenue. We make the world go round because we make other people rich. To be quite honest with you, we do. And those people show absolutely no respect or appreciation or gratitude for the fact that we spend money with them, or that we take care of them, or that we have made it possible for them to live the lavish lifestyles that they're living right now. So I feel like, and Byron Allen said it himself, we're not asking for a seat at the table. We're taking it. This is a take. And that's exactly what this should be. Just like Tyler Perry Studios are a take. We are taking a stand in movies right about now with that. But that's on the next segment. But I just want to say that more power to Byron Allen. My plan is to try and keep up with this and see how things go with him and with this case, and maybe even do some updates on it and keep everybody abreast of the situation. But go on, Byron Allen, more power to you, my brother. I hope it works out in all of our favor. We need you to win. We need you to win.
All right, so I'm gonna do this really, really quick, but there are 4 types of racism. So I'm gonna touch on them briefly, and then in part 2 of this episode, I'll go in depth. Got it? So we have institutionalized racism. That's initial historic insult, structural barriers, inaction in the face of need, and societal norms, because that's just the way it is. That's we racist because that's just the way we've always been. Then there's personally meditated racism. It's intentional. It's unintentional. It could be acts of commission, which means I outright do something. An act of omission, which means I left you out on purpose. And finally, the last one, internalized racism. It reflects the systems of privilege. We talked about white privilege a few episodes ago. It reflects societal values. It erodes in an individual sense of value, and it undermines the collective action of a people as a whole. Boom.
All right.
So that's your brain science to go with this, and we'll get deeper in that on episode 2. But for your self-care assignment, this one is really simple. I've done this myself. I've done it at work. I need to do it at home. But I want you to grab a cute bag or a box that you keep in your car, at your desk, or take with you while you're traveling, and fill it with quick activities that can help you reset your mind in challenging moments. Make sure you have the tools you need to invest in your well-being always. It could be something that hits all 5 of your senses, something you can smell, something you can taste, something you can touch, something you can see that will make you happy in those times of stress and you need a little boost to your self-care. So while you are running the world and suing cable companies,
no doubt.
Make sure
that's what's happening in my immediate future.
Exactly. And you are fighting the good fight of racism as a regular person. Make sure that you have those things around you that make you feel good no matter what.
All right.
So I'm Lady Bounce. You can find us on SoundCloud, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. You can always email us at flywithusla@gmail.com. I'm Lady Bounce.
I'm Kryptonite, y'all.
And we out.